Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about drawing capital letters. I'm only going to draw two capital letters really, maybe three, just to give you the kind of idea, because remember that you're not required to draw that many capital letter forms. You are drawing capital letters only as it suits your design, so the kind of text that you're working with, just to sort of show and express the concept of your typeface. So you don't have to have a full set of capitals. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to draw some of the capitals so that they work with your lowercase letters. That's really the most important factor in having capital letters, is that in most text, the lowercase letters are the dominant form, the dominant script that gets used, and caps are used in a secondary role, really. All cap settings are not as frequent as lowercase settings. But remember, if we look at our grid, so a good thing to do is to have something, we'll do the H because it's really easy to get. Remember that we know what our cap height is going to be, and in contemporary typefaces, in particular, like let's say more like workhorse typefaces, where they're meant to be used at text sizes as well as larger sizes, I personally think that having capitals that are not overly tall or standing out from the lowercase is a better situation, because once again they're not that frequent, so I don't want them to stand out too much, because they're going to stand out anyways by their width, by a little bit of extra weight that they tend to have just normally. But I should mention that right now, that we actually want the capitals to match the harmony, like the weight, the color of the lowercase letters. So if I want to start drawing a capital letter, what I do is I'm going to just bring in the stem of N for now. And generally for your capital letters, you want the weight to probably be about 3 to 4 units thicker to match the harmony of the lowercase. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to end up being 93 from 89. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and reflect and send it up here. And in fact, I should have just left it like that. And I'm going to sit it at the cap height. Now obviously we want this to go in this direction so that it's working with the behavior of the typeface. A way that I can check that and make sure that it's a harmonious angle is I could look at my X, lowercase. But I'll do it this way instead, just because it gives me the same angle. Alright. And that's sticking out too far. Now actually right here, what do I have? I have a capital letter I, so I could actually type my capital I glyph, throw this in here, and I'll give these characters, that's pretty wide actually, I'll do that. But for H, what I'm going to do is copy this. Now right now I would say that the H, in order to make it comfortable with the N, it should be probably about, let's say the width of the N, it should be, here's a good way to look at proportion systems. The width of the N stem stroke right now, the width of this counter of the N is actually about 1, whoops, I can't do that, 1 and 2, it's about 2 1/3 counters wide, the width of the N. But if I take this, and this is where my N is sitting in accordance with this counter, I probably want the N, the H, to be about a stem and a third, or even a stem and a half wider. But you know what, something like this is working pretty well. What did I use for this, 28? So I could even say 28 there. And really the only thing that you can do, and I would definitely design the capitals after you've developed your lowercase. Maybe you just want to put the H in it for a place order, but make sure you have the lowercase, like a couple letters at least, before you start working on any capitals, because you need to compare the proportions to the lowercase. So I would say that this H width right here is pretty good. And then what I can do is I can borrow the crossbar from F or T in my lowercase, if I've designed those characters yet. And what I want with this crossbar is it should be around the same weight. And what I want is it to be centered roughly in this area. I want this to be centered roughly. And I think that that H is a little too wide. I think this is actually better. Yeah, I think that's working a lot better. Now in terms of the fitting, this is actually a little wide. I want this to be tighter. Even tighter than that, because when I'm dealing with capitals and their fitting, I care about how the capitals fit to the lowercase letters. I care a lot more about that than I care about how they fit together. They're going to look actually quite tight when they're fit together, and then that's why kerning has to come in to fix issues, or you have to letter space capitals and small caps. That's the reason why, because the fitting of the caps go in accordance with the fitting of the lowercase and their relationship. So if I have a word like, I can make some words now, like I could make a word like something like that. It's not fit very well yet. But, well, here, car company. And I need that capital H to feel like it blends into the pattern here of these characters, these lowercase characters that I've already drawn. Okay, now R is a great letter to get started because it's going to give you DNA for everything else in the caps. It's going to give you a stem, which we already have. It's going to give you a bold that you can lead over to the B, D, P, and it's going to give you a diagonal that you can use for letters like A, V, W, X, Y, Z, K, and so on. So if I was going to draw an R, what I would do is I would throw in the stem that I've already got, and I'm going to bring the crossbar, which might get a little bit narrower, but I'm going to just place it here because we're going to need it. And then what I'm going to do is draw the bowl, and I can use this bowl to get started. So what I want to do is cut that and cut that, and I'm going to not let this be a curve. Now I'm going to make this 1, 2, 3, 4 a little bit wider. Remember we talked about this has to be a little bit wider. And what I'm going to do for this character is I'm going to actually get rid of this for now. I'm just going to throw this in here because I want this to be a straight movement, because the way an R is written calligraphically is you would come down and make your stem and make your serifs, then you come over and make the bowl so it comes out of here and it goes back down, and then you would make your leg, and then you make this stroke to finish everything. And once again, the width would correspond to the width of the H relatively. How does it work with lowercase? But here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get something like this because I want there to be a nice kind of smooth contour there. And now how big should the bowl of the R be? And this is going to be too heavy. This needs to actually be adjusted. The bowl of the R should be just a little bit above center, I would say. So if the H is sitting here, this bowl of the R should be a little bit above the center area. And I'm going to now grab these and bring them in. This is going to come back. All right. Okay. That's not bad for this design. This style of art, it feels like it's working. Another thing that actually is helpful is get a lowercase letter there so that you can say, okay, is this working nicely? How does this work with the pattern of all the other characters that I'm drawing? I want them to be related. Okay, and it feels a little too wide. Not bad. Okay, at some point I gotta say that it's good to go. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get the leg, and what I do is I take this leg. Now, There is some geometry in the Roman capital letters. These are based on Roman imperial capitals. There's a little piece of geometry that helps with this kind of character. If you take this general area up here and you draw a diagonal down through it like this, that's giving you the kind of angle that you want for this leg. So you might wonder, what should that angle be? Now, I'm assuming that this R is going to be a straight-legged R, which is what I'm going to make. So where it's going to have a straight, well, what that means is just a straight diagonal instead of a kind of curved shape that you see on some Didot Bedoni style typefaces. I want this angle to be similar to that. So what I do is I get it lined up at the same angle, and obviously this is not a nice looking R yet, but it will be, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this serif. We don't want that serif there, and I'm going to throw this out a little bit. And for this character, I want this to be a flat bottom. I think that's going to be the best. And now you could even do something like this. You could just subtly curve this. Now let's leave it straight for now. And then this is going to get a little bit heavier. And even maybe what we do, throw a point there, throw a little bit of curve there. And just give it a little swing. Okay. Now, sometimes you have to be careful how you design the R though. If you let this leg be too far over to the right and you've got this extra white space, it makes it really tough to fit other letters. So let's get a word like this. And you can tell that, now here's something interesting. You can tell right now that this A is not working quite well. It's too heavy and it's too narrow for everything else. Even the E is feeling probably a little too narrow. I think the weight is a bigger issue with the A than anything, but I think its width is a little too narrow compared to everything else. So that's throwing things off a little bit. In fact, I think this R leg needs to be a bit heavier. And it could even be a little bit wider. But it needs, this curve on the R should match the curve that you see on things like E, and on D, that bowl curve. It should be similar to that. So I want that to be reflected in this character. Okay. So that is how to draw some of the basic capital letters, because now you can start spreading this to a lot of other things. Okay.